Welcome to Careers for the Blind. My name is Harrison Hoyes, and I'm losing my sight to retinitis pigmentosa. As my vision continues to get worse, I wanted to have conversations with other blind and visually impaired people to see what advice they may have to offer and keep me motivated and inspired and continuing to strive to do the best that I can in my career. I know I'm not the only person going through this type of situation, so my hope is other people will benefit from hearing these conversations the way that I've been benefiting from them. And in this way, I'll be able to give to others what my guests have been so generous to give to me. In January 2020, I had a conversation with Jessica Loomer. Jessica attended the University of Arizona, and then at the age of 27, while she was working at a mining company, ME Elect Metal, over a period of about a year, she lost the majority of her central vision to Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy. She struggled for a short time searching for a job as a visually impaired person, but once she embraced her situation, her career took off. Her passion and career are now one and the same, as she is the principal product delivery manager at Spectrum. If you want to learn more about LHON, visit lhon.org. And if you want to reach out to Jessica, you can give her a call at 480-292-6936. Here's my conversation with Jessica. Thanks so much for taking some time to share your story. Can you tell me about your first experience with vision loss?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for so much for having me. So my first experience was really kind of tricky because I actually lost vision when I was in the middle or the beginning of a job. So I was 1 month into a brand new job and was losing vision in my left eye. And my first employer, gosh, this was years ago. It was amazing. Within months, it moved from my left eye to my right eye, but within weeks, I had a CCTV and Zoom text and just kind of jumped right in. I had the whole team using 20/20 pens, like everything adapted to me. So it was a really good first experience, losing vision and kind of just obviously adapting to everything in the world with my new vision loss, but having a really supportive employer. So I got extremely lucky with my first career experience with vision loss.
Okay. So you went through college, no issues. So at what point was it that this happened?
I actually lost my vision at 27. So I was out of college and trying to establish some sort of career. It actually is funny. I guess we'll kind of get to it, but my career is actually better now with vision loss than where I was from out of college to 27. So kind of crazy how that turns out.
How quickly has your vision stabilized, and how quickly did that occur?
Yeah, I'm knocking on wood as I kind of say this, but yeah, my vision. So it was in my left eye first, and that was about October of 2012, and then by 2013, around March-ish, it was in my other eye. So I have Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy. So it's all my central vision is gone, and it's what we call the scotoma. So this gray like abyss in front of me, and I have peripheral vision, but it kind of looks like I'm underwater. So everything's pretty fuzzy. But once I kind of know like where I am in my surroundings, I don't walk with a cane. But if walking to my house to work, I use a cane. Walking around the airport, I'll use a cane, or kind of like new areas. But a lot of it's for recognition, but a lot of it's that I don't see people approaching me until they're pretty close. But yeah.
So your first employer, where you had having vision loss issues, they were very accommodative, but it sounds like you've changed jobs since. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my first experience was amazing, and then it kind of all went on this roller coaster from there. I've changed jobs quite a bit since then. I'm trying to think. I had a unemployment stint there for a little hiatus, where I really struggled looking for a job, finding a job, keeping a job. It was a tough, and it was a good year that I kind of went through that. And that was right after this amazing job that I was a project manager for a mining company, and mining kind of took a turn. And so half my office got laid off. And so I struggled after that because it was my first time really honestly looking for a job being visually impaired. And it was a whole new world. And unfortunately to be a whole new world of what I was looking for and how to kind of all the first, how do I tell my employer I'm visually impaired? Do I come in with a cane? Do I not? Do I fake it till I make it? Like, how do I do all of that? And so that year was definitely a year I learned how to do it all, but have then since worked at the University of Arizona down in Tucson and worked for Aetna as a IT project manager, worked at Starbucks, which is amazing, and now currently work for Spectrum here in Denver.
All right. So a series of different positions. What were the processes like, and so what route did you take in terms of informing them, and how did those conversations go with the hiring managers?
Oh, every route. I did. I think I did every one that you could throughout that entire year process. I got questions from how did I get here to who brushed my hair to wow, I can't believe like how do you work sort of thing to kind of coming and evolving. It took a while to kind of get to the place that I had to realize, you know what, I'm successful, I'm capable, I'm intelligent, and like heck yeah, I'm a badass sort of thing, and walk in there with confidence. So like it didn't even matter, and that took me a while to kind of get to that point. And I mean, once you have that, you can walk in with anything. I walked in with a cane, and they're like, I'm like, oh, I'm so. As I was folding it up, I was like, yeah, I brought it. It matched my purse. And it
Hmm.
was just kind of this joke, and we moved on. But it took me a while to kind of get to that confidence level. But gosh, I didn't take my cane once, and the I guess super cool thing with offices now is all glass walls and white office furniture. So that was a bad idea to not bring your cane into that. So totally adventurous, especially when they hand you paperwork and things like that. And I actually took a job where I didn't tell them and didn't disclose it until I was offered the job. And I wish I would have said something earlier, because it got to the point that when I sat down at the job, sat down at my desk, I felt like there was no way for me to succeed. And I wish I would have been more upfront. I struggled with that for like about 3 months. And then, yeah, in all honesty, I walked away from that position realizing like there is half the time it's tools and half the time it's people. So you want to make sure it's a culture fit too. So
Hmm.
yeah, I took every angle.
As you were losing your sight, was there anyone in your family or anyone that you knew that was blind or visually impaired?
Yeah. So my brother actually has the same eye disease, but he got it when he was 8. So
Wow. Okay.
same eye disease, but like a way different experience from 8 to 27.
Hmm.
So at this point, my brother has it, my aunt has it, and my uncle has it.
Wow. Is that common for so many people in the family to have that condition? I thought it was a little bit more rare.
Oh, sometimes there's some families that are affected like mine, and there's some families where they've literally never heard of this eye disease, and they're the only person. It's weird.
Wow, interesting. I'll
And it's
probably
also weird because like my aunt got affected at 61. So like where is that common denominator? It doesn't make sense.
after losing your sight, did you get any kind of training to help you with the with your new situation?
Ooh, I would say I was slightly rebel in this case. I did probably at a minimum. I did have independent living come to my house and kind of help me bump dot my apartment and things like that. But pretty minimal. And then I did have orientation mobility instruction, and that actually came to my office and helped me kind of learn how to have best cane skills and things like that. But pretty minimal. Yeah, I think I might have been the rebel in that case.
Everybody, to each his own. Whatever works for you.
Right? I wish I would have done more JAWS training. Like hindsight is 2020. Like, gosh, if I would have learned JAWS better, is probably what I wish I would have done. And I pass it on to everybody. Like, you know, get to know your keyboard, get to know your screen reader, get to know all those keyboard commands, because that will help you way down further down the line and keep you faster. And gosh, faster than your visual friends. But I pass it on because I didn't do it, and I wish I did.
Okay. Is there any other advice for people that things that you might have wished you did differently?
I mean, training specifically, I think it's all kind of personal, especially like what's your personal situation. And is it best to kind of take time off work and jump in and join a program that's 9 months long and 100% hands-on, or is it best to kind of try to be able to balance your career, wherever you are at the moment, and also be able to do training? Oh, it's tough because it's such a personal decision. That's a tough question.
Okay.
But my Jaws one is probably my biggest one. And cooking, gosh, if I would have probably learned how to cook a little bit better. But I think it's trial and error, right? It's trial and error with everybody. Like your first couple meals are terrible, and then eventually you kind of become a better cook. But I think that's with visual people too.
Yeah, you're a little bit different from some of the other people that I've interviewed. Most people were affected in their early in life, but with
Okay, yeah.
you being affected with your vision later in life, it's good to have a mix in terms of the types of people I'm speaking with, and the stories that everybody's sharing. Earlier, you had mentioned you wanted to give a shout out for lhon.org. Is there anything else that
Yes.
you wanted to say about that in that organization?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great central hub for a lot of information with Leber, Hereditary, Optic, Neuropathy, especially if you're looking for some additional information. LH1 is actually rarely diagnosed. It's a tough disease just because we're rare. It's actually only 100 Americans are actually diagnosed a year, so super rare, often misdiagnosed. So kind of look to that as a central hub of information. And especially with all these regional teams kind of popping up and developing, it's great to hopefully you'll have, if you're looking for additional information, hopefully you'll have a regional being developed in your area. So you can reach out and kind of find more information and how we can kind of best assist and help. And I guess my biggest thing, and this is definitely not LHON specific, but my biggest thing is there's so many communities out there kind of specific to what one person may be looking for. I actually just talked to a guy the other day, and he was talking about music and trying to pick music back up again. Or, I mean, other friends that are into gaming and just kind of jumping into that. I'm a runner, so super into running, and have kind of found my running friends all within the blind visually impaired community. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that helped me cope a ton, especially losing vision at 27, kind of how I can find my niche, or kind of like the people I connect with the most, and to be able to ask them the questions like, hey, so how do you match your clothes? Or how do I look professional and look put together when I'm going into the office? Those are all questions that I think are really important to be able to address. But as long as you can kind of find a mentor or a group of people that you do feel most comfortable asking those questions, that's really important.
Can you tell me about the position that you hold now with Spectrum, and what you're doing in that job?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Can you tell I love my job? So my title at Spectrum is Principal Product Delivery Manager. That's just a fancy term for project manager. So I actually am the project manager of the accessibility team for Spectrum. So my goal is to not only deliver audits and reports to the entire company, all of Spectrum, on accessibility, and maybe it's a specific test, or it's anything like that. But it's also kind of getting introduced to and kind of sharing what is accessibility across the entire company. And I say this because accessibility, that team's been there for years, but there's new people all the time. There's new people, there's new products, there's new teams all the time. So it's kind of jumping in, kind of sharing what is accessibility, what's important to look for to ensure compliance, but kind of beyond compliance. Let's focus on universal design, getting to kind of expand what we're thinking to ensure that every product or service or email or piece of paper that you receive from Spectrum is accessible. So it's fantastic. I'm super lucky. I'm on a team of accessibility engineers that are sheer brainiacs. So learn something from them every single day. Trying to really kind of up my tech skills and be able to kind of talk to developers and things like that. So that's my career goal for sure. But it's also great, like beyond the accessibility engineers that are great to work with. I get to also work hand in hand with people that work with content and design, learning to ensure learning kind of across the board of not only internally with our team or with like Spectrum as a whole, but also externally. So it's great. I absolutely love my job. The culture, I talked about culture a little bit before and how important it is, because, there's so many companies that kind of talk about diversity and inclusion, and yes, it's important. And yes, like they say yes to all these things. And you get there and you're kind of like, really? And, you kind of feel like that was just kind of like a fake hoorah, but that's not the case at all. Gosh, like we had a Halloween costume contest, and it was actually during COVID, so it was all virtual, of course. There was actually a channel that we had specifically for our team that provided audio subscription. So as like each team was kind of doing their Halloween costume contest, we had a WebEx channel that was giving audio descriptions of everything that was on screen. So they're kind of going above and beyond for inclusion and making sure that everyone feels included, but also that it's a normal thing. Like this is completely universal design, that this should be the norm. This is the bar that we set. And so it's fantastic. I love when I can, throw the ball for the CNI dogs up and down the hallways. And that is a very normal and acceptable thing. And the respect level and the culture is, just one of the reasons that I absolutely love that job.
Wow. So it sounds like there's a number of people that are blind, visually impaired at your company.
Yeah, for sure. I was just talking to somebody else, and people were telling me that this was like completely different and not heard of. And I was like, really? And I guess you just kind of take it for granted when you're kind of in a team with people of all different abilities, and it's like great. Amongst the technical team that I'm part of, oh gosh, more than half of us have a disability. So, and it's great.
Okay. All right. Did you have any mentors after having lost your sight or the majority of your vision that helped you through and kind of helped guide you on what to do and how to do it?
Yeah, for sure. So, gosh, throughout the entire process, even when I was like gainfully employed and like loving my job, I would often just do research. What was out there for the blind and visually impaired, and how could I find a job of something that I wanted to pursue? Oftentimes I felt like we were funneled, like, oh, you have this, you should work at this center. And I wasn't about that. I wanted to do what I love to do. And so it kind of honestly in Google searches and just trying to look for resources, I ran into the Blind Institute of Technology and got a hold of the founder, Mike Hess. And gosh, he is a mentor to me to this day. I talked to him yesterday. And just kind of how to best navigate, how do I approach these situations, but also kind of like a cheerleader in the sense that, mentors sometimes are the people that remind you that you are fantastic and you are amazing. You know your stuff, and get in there and prove it to the people that are interviewing you, or prove it to your coworkers, because you were hired for that position for a reason,
What kind of technology are you using in your job and just in your life these days to make your life easier?
Yeah, so I use, actually at this very second, I'm using just a Microsoft magnifier. And it's doing the trick at the current moment. I've used Zoom Text in the past, which is fantastic. So I actually, my current work situation is that I have Windows magnifier and parallel with JAWS. It just makes me faster knowing that I have JAWS to kind of read me everything. And then I use obviously the magnifier for visual things like pivot charts aren't super easy accessible. So I want to kind of see that. Especially I do a ton of like reporting for work. So I want to be able to kind of like get everything lined up on a PowerPoint and things like that. The super visual stuff that I'm able to magnify and get in there. I was adjusting like bar chart colors and things like that the other day. But with JAWS reading me the colors, I know that I was choosing the right color every single time. And then just kind of making like quick visual tweaks with my magnifier. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, do you have any advice for people that are in a similar situation, maybe in a job already and then having lost some sight? Or do you have advice for people that are looking for jobs, and anything that might help them through that process?
Yeah, for sure. My first set of advice is that to find something that you love to do. And even though you are blind or visually impaired, it like doesn't matter. Like sky is still your limit. Don't let the comfort or anything like that hold you back from wanting to kind of excel and move on to something else. It's super scary, just kind of like realizing that like this is not the right position for you, and to kind of leap and kind of go for it, but it's totally worth it. The risk is I mean, far less than the reward. And I can definitely kind of share that story for sure. And my second thing is especially the interview process and kind of the job search and trying to find that right fit. Even though my unemployment hiatus and kind of that journey was a really tough year, it showed I grew a ton in that year, and you learn to have some grit, and you learn to kind of realize that you are the badass that you think you are. You are completely capable of everything that you want to do and pursue, and to maintain persistence. And all of that will kind of bundled up will definitely just set you up for success. So it takes a while. And everyone feels like they have to, like, oh my gosh, I don't have a job right now. Just breathe a second, take a step back, and realize, like, kind of evaluate what you're looking for. And I mean, set yourself up for some of that success by really kind of doing some self-empowerment, self-care, in the sense that you need to understand that you are confident within yourself, and everything else will kind of fall into place, because that will kind of outshine anything else.
Tell me a little bit more about the community that you started and the monthly calls that you guys do.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely can't take credit for starting it, but just kind of being part of it and helping lead and try to, network, bring people together. So I was actually, LH1 has a conference that they put on once a year, and that's kind of in conjunction with another conference with the United Mitochondrial Disease Foundation. Our eye disease is actually kind of under the umbrella of UMDF, and so we kind of joined together on that conference. So just losing vision, the first thing that you kind of look for is, like, I need to kind of find a community. How can I relate to people, and I was just looking for someone to honestly tell me, like, everything was going to be okay. And you kind of feel alone in the journey, that no one really else can relate. And so I reached out and onto a Facebook page, and actually got in contact with Lissa Poinsono. And she opened up these huge doors for me to be able to get to know other people with LHON, and especially kind of get to know people around my age, or different people going through the same thing I was, especially people just affected. From there, kind of skyrocketed, and there was a conference actually that summer in June, and we went to Pittsburgh, and I got to meet, we always talk about conference, because conference to us is like this amazing get together where you literally get to meet people that you gravitate to instantly and feel like you've known them for years, because all of a sudden every struggle and every kind of triumph that you've had, everyone can relate to it, because they're kind of in the same boat. I often say that LH1 doesn't have an age, because no matter at what age LH1 affects a person, we all kind of go through the same things, because it's not something that happens often to somebody at birth or when they're younger. It's often kind of later-ish. And I say later-ish because the age range is kind of broad, but that later-ish, that age range, just kind of connects us all together. And so it's fantastic. So my mom and I actually fly to conference together, and I get to meet all these people. And it's such a bond that you really can't replace anywhere else. And I was sitting at this conference, and I was flying home, and I actually sat next to Alyssa, and I was like, what can we do? What can we do more? Like, what's next? How do you bottle up what we're doing right here, right now, and be able to continue it? And so I actually reached out to one of my new fantastic friends, Andy Marks, and I was like, what do you think about putting a call together? And Andy and I kind of went back and forth and talking about format and things like that. And gosh, 6 years later, so many different iterations of the LH1 live call. And it's gone from interviews to experts to podcasts. And now it's just me and Andy kind of chatting back and forth on different topics. But it's amazing. It's consistent. It's every first Wednesday of the month. And we have a completely loyal caller base that calls in and kind of asks questions. But honestly, it's when the new people know that they have a place to kind of count on, that they can pop in and ask questions. Or it's the people that come every single month that they know that they have an instant spot that they can talk to all their friends that we talked to last month. So it's been awesome. So from there, it's really grown. Gosh, the community has kind of taken a ton of leadership, and now we're working on building that network that we have within LH1 Live to also to more regions across the entire country. So if maybe you're newly affected and you live in Colorado, you know that you can kind of have a regional lead to count on, that maybe you can, find out any Colorado tips and tricks. And so there's leaders that have kind of stepped up all over the country. So we're kind of working on building those, that leadership across the board. So it's been an awesome journey, and I'm super thankful that I get to be part of it.
If people want to join your monthly call, how would they go about doing that?
It's either posted on Facebook within the LH1 Facebook group. So I post it there. There's also we have an email blast that goes out that is sent that information as well.
What are you doing these days for hobbies and just things that bring a lot of joy to your life?
Oh, running. So you'll probably have to cut me off because I get super excited to talk about running. So there's actually, so it was the same Pittsburgh conference, gosh, back in 2013 maybe, that I actually saw. There was at the conference, there was a picture that I saw of another person at the conference that had just lost vision. And he actually had this picture of him at the finish line with his two buddies arm in arm, and they were crossing the finish line of a cross country race. And he is an amazing runner, and for a minute didn't think that he could run anymore because he was visually impaired. And then just kind of came back around. His buddies were like, nope, you're running, and encouraged him. And this picture totally inspired me that if he could do it, I could do it too. And given I was no D1 athlete for sure, but it was a passion, and to be able to kind of see again, that I could do this and this is something that I could be part of. So yeah, so I kind of jumped right into running. I reached out to a couple of different people and kind of where do you start? So I reached out to Achilles International, and then I reached out to my local running group and I said hey, my name is Jessica. I'm visually impaired. I actually don't run. Is there any way that someone would be willing to run with me? Which is kind of a hard sell. They're but from there, gosh, it was, and the guides that I had in my initial first year of me literally trying to go run a mile, and eventually later that year I ran a 5K, are some of my best friends. And one of them actually, she travels with me all over the country to go to different marathons at this point. So that was years ago. So from there, it went from 5Ks straight to half marathons because that's what runners do. We're crazy. And now I just run, and now it's just marathons. So, instant bond with all of these people, and no better friendship can you build throughout when you're running with somebody and you're really kind of trying to push through that 1 mile mark or 2 mile mark or 26-mile mark, and just kind of digging a little deep, as we say, but to have someone side by side to you. And yeah, you really develop some amazing friendships. I actually also ran Hood to Coast. We were on the first blind visually impaired team where we ran from Mount Hood to the Portland coast. And so it was 10 blind visually impaired runners, all of our guides, 2 vans. And yeah, we did great. It was a complete blast. It was so much fun. It was adventurous for sure. But gosh, being in a van with 5 of your other favorite blind runners, you develop a friendship that we actually get together once a month, and I'll jump on a Zoom call just to kind of say hey and keep in touch, But running was literally the thing that helped me kind of continue to push through and realize you don't need vision to see or vision to run. You can just kind of go for it. And then kind of in conjunction as well, I run at the California International Marathon with the United States Association of Blind Athletes, and run every single year with them for, the past 4 years. And that's the national championship race. So that's been an absolute blast. And there are some amazing people there that have run CIM for years with the team. And so it's like a reunion when you go there, because we all come from different vision levels. We all come from different running backgrounds. There are some Paralympians that attend, 2 people that walk, and it's all amazing, and everyone has a blast. And gosh, I'm missing that for sure, to kind of have that connection. So hopefully soon.
Yeah, oh, that's great.
I'm saying that as I sit next to my treadmill because of COVID. So hopefully someday we can get back to that, because yeah.
Yeah, we will just
True.
little time, a little longer. Where do you find your motivation and drive to continue pursuing your career with passion?
Oh gosh, meeting different people every single day. The conversations, I'm super lucky. The conversations I get to have talking about accessibility and talking about universal design, to have that conversation with people and literally to kind of see their aha moment, ignites my soul, to sound like, not to sound cheesy, but literally they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. Like that is something I never even considered. And I mean, it doesn't have to be visually impaired or blindness. It's just to kind of think about other disabilities and how you can think of something differently. And one small change can literally make a huge difference to a screen reader or to someone that uses a switch device or different things like that. To see that and to kind of be part of that, yeah, that I get to see that a lot. To kind of have that mindset shift. And so I totally get excited about all of that. And just to kind of have people completely open to hearing about different options and opportunities with accessibility and how it can make a difference in other people's lives and how we can kind of be able to translate that to products and services, like that's awesome. But then on the other hand, I when I come home from work, I jump on a call and I'm talking to someone maybe newly affected. And they're kind of talking through like, what do you think about this? Or can I ask questions about that? And to know that like what I get to do during the day affects and helps someone that I get to talk to at night, you know, it's full circle. It's a small world. And it's great that I kind of get to pull like both of them together. So it's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you would have liked me to have asked?
No, so I was gonna share. So when I was in my unemployment kind of window, so it was right after I got laid off of my first job being visually impaired. So it was right after the mining company, and that entire year of just like interviews and I mean everything, you name it, applications, like till the cows came home, and kind of doing all that, I realized I just needed something. I needed something to kind of put you know, you kind of feel like you need to kind of gain some self-worth. Like it's a constant battle to interview all the time and then to always apply for 10 jobs a day. That's like, I would set goals for myself. Okay, apply for 10 jobs a day or get 5 interviews this week. And to do that day in and day out for months, it wears on you. And you realize like, what can I do next sort of thing? And you realize like, what can I at least kind of, you needed something to kind of, I don't know, add value or do something. And so I kind of looked for like a part-time job, you know, something that I could like, you get dressed, you get ready in the morning, and somewhere to go to like that I could succeed and like be able to share value, like pursue. And so I actually heard that Starbucks is an amazing place to work. So I went and interviewed there, and the manager was amazing. So went and interviewed there. It was the busiest Starbucks in all of Arizona. And it was, gosh, one of the hardest jobs I've ever had in the sense of like manual labor and hustling. And it taught me a ton. I actually only worked there 3 months, but that 3 months was like a pivot moment for me. I would literally, I mean, gosh, with paratransit, you know, like there's a window. So I would literally probably sit on the patio of Starbucks, like Starbucks dining on the outside patio, and I'd wait an hour until my shift started because my shift was 4 hours. And then I would wait maybe another hour, hour and a half as we kind of wait on the other end. And in that time frame, while I was waiting, I started reading a ton of self-help books and self-motivation. And that was huge for me because not only did I feel super successful when I was in Starbucks because they empowered me to be successful. I mean, it was everything from like we bump dotted the entire Starbucks. There was bump dots everywhere. I did a lot of the coffee. So there was gigantic Sharpies and people would write huge letters on each bag of coffee, like dark roast, blonde roast. So, I mean, big enough that I would stick my nose to it so I could be able to read it. And they just jumped right in to make everything accessible so I could continue to work. And I got some really sweet arm muscles because I flung garbage like nobody's business. But it was it was my pivot moment for sure, because then after I did that I felt fulfilled, you know, then I would get on the patio and I'd read all these different books that really kind of empowered me. I have an amazing support network. My family is fantastic and they're constantly pushing me. I have amazing friends that continue to tell me that I can do anything I want. So I have this amazing support network, but I needed to literally be told from somebody else that I was amazing to understand that like I needed to like reset and be like, you know, like regain that confidence again. So it was books that I turned to, and like different audiobooks to kind of hear someone kind of walk through mindset shifts and different things like that. And so, yeah, that was my pivot.
I hope we can all learn something from my conversation with Jessica. I know for myself, I'm going to try to find my inner badass. And having confidence in myself will lead to successful interviews and a successful career. I hope you come back to hear more inspiring stories from other blind and visually impaired people. And thanks for listening.